Hey guys, good evening. So now that you've successfully completed your GS1 and GS2, okay, congratulations. So 3 out of your entire 9 tests are done. Okay, so still a few more to go. Tomorrow you're going to have your GS3, GS4, for which you've asked me for some last minute tips. Okay, uh, so first we'll take a look at GS3 and then we can discuss GS4 in the next video. Okay, so let's start the session with some last minute pointers. See, so again, I just want to emphasize this, right? So this is basically last minute pointers, right? So this is not how you, at the moment, you already have quite a bit of knowledge in these topics. Okay, your overall volume in terms of preparation, okay, your overall volume in terms of the number of answers that you have written, including tests, assignments, all of that, okay, is quite impressive. So overall, you're already in a solid position as of now. Okay, so I'll give you some pointers, some just final pointers, because we're not going to be able to study everything in one night, right? So there are things that you have to focus on. There are certain things that you have to emphasize. Some things have to be de-emphasized at the moment, right? So we'll focus on what you should prioritize, and recap before tomorrow. Got it? So let's begin. GS3 overall is you guys know, right? So one of the big things about GS3 is that it's got an extensive syllabus, right? So GS3 covers areas like your economic development, your agriculture, science and tech, environment, disaster management, internal security, all of these kind of topics you have. So each of these topics by itself is quite vast. Okay, it requires a detailed understanding, of current events in these areas, of policies in the areas, whatever concepts are there in these areas, right? And also because there's a lot of it's basically dynamic content, right? Many of these questions are generally linked to current events and how the government is performing in them, where exactly, all these kind of components, especially when it comes to economic development, environment, okay, and so on. I'll emphasize internal security may not be so, okay, despite the fact that it might seem so. Okay. One quick pointer, okay, before you take away anything in this, right? So, internal security, okay, is going to be a highly scoring topic. And I will tell you exactly why. A lot of the questions generally tend to be a little more static, right? So it is solid preparation beforehand, directly proportional to preparation, directly proportional to your performance. A lot of it is basically done before you enter the hall, right? So the questions are a lot more direct, unlike in many other sort of areas, right? So for instance, there are other topics that might require knowledge of technical concepts and all of that, right? You don't have that. So internal security is not something to be taken lightly. Economy, there is a reason why I say economy is also kind of scoring. If you look at this kind of breakup, okay, so if you look at the breakup, so here's what we have, right? So you can see the table in which, the data for 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. Okay, the last 6 years have been provided. Uh, So here's the breakdown for GS3. See, traditionally, economy and agricultural economy, these sections basically carry around 125 marks, although they've been closer to 100 in recent years, right? So you'll also find that marks are distributed equally across, your environment, science and tech, and disaster management. That is also approximately 100 marks, right? So this bunch, agriculture, economy, okay, plus, these three subjects, are equally important. However, economy tends to be relatively easier, okay, because that's a component that you basically read and prepare like almost on a daily basis, right? See, science and technology. See, remember it can cover vast range of topics. Okay, be sure to revise what's happening in the space sector. Okay, revisit your notes when it comes to nanotech, your AI, other emerging fields, biotech. I guess I didn't mention that. Okay, so that is another one. Environment and disaster management, right? These are also quite straightforward, right? So if you have ample, I think you have a lot of knowledge to draw from. Okay, whatever question that they're able to provide you, because since you have done all of these things, I'm sure that regardless of what the question is, you still have a good amount of content from where you can draw and be able to craft an answer, right? Don't forget to review your value addition, especially from round one. Okay, ensure that you have not only a strong body in the answers, but you also give equal attention to your introductions and conclusions, right? In addition to the main body. Okay. In fact, some of these introductions and conclusions, if you feel, you want to get in the zone, okay, please practice them tonight. Okay. You'll need to have, that ability to think analytically about these, in those 3 hours and 50 minutes, 3 hours and 50 pages. Okay. It is, you want to minimize the amount of thinking that is there. Okay. It's not that easy to complete the paper, be, sort of your mind being at peak capacity throughout those. So whatever kind of work that you can do beforehand, you try to ensure that you can do it. Okay, so for instance, let us say that for environment related questions, this is going to be my approach for introduction, this is going to be my framework for conclusion. All of these things you already have. Okay, so just have that in your mind, so as soon as you go to that particular question, you are not thinking creatively about new ideas on how to introduce, how to conclude. Just try to say in conclusion, try to apply those frameworks, and then link it to the keywords of that particular question, ensure that it is at least 5 6 lines, and I think it's solid. Okay, and it is good to go. Okay, you want to minimize the amount of brainstorming that you have to do in the exam, okay, by doing them beforehand and being prepared. Okay, so that is another one. So with regard to internal security, okay, so in my opinion, it is the easiest topic of all. Okay, primarily because it is static content. Okay, primarily because it is static in content. See, I see, for especially when it comes to internal security, right? There are some 8 topics there. Okay, you have your social media, you have terror, you have money laundering, you have left-wing extremism, you have cybersecurity. There are a few of these topics, right? Generally, if you have a strong grasp on these internal security topics and you have to think relatively less in terms of like recollection, if you can do this, you can basically finish those questions with at least 1 minute to spare for each of those. Okay, make sure to study this thoroughly. Okay, and I highlight that a little later as well. Okay. Okay, so generally, what are the final sort of execution tips for tomorrow? See, first thing, try to maintain a high point density, and that matters. See, in the context of UPSC, okay, in GS3 paper, ensuring a high point density in your answers, is kind of important when it comes to maximizing your score, right? Even if the quality of your points is great, but relatively in terms of quantity of points, if that is relatively on the lower end, it becomes difficult for the evaluator to be able to sort of match the kind of scores that you deserve, right? So ensure that there is quality by, validating your points, but also maintain high point density. So each point that you write, also ensure that, you try your level best to back it with some sort of substantial evidence. Okay, so some sort of substantiation. It could be in terms of examples. It can be in terms of reports. If you go back to, the validation that I had given, look at the MSME question. I had mentioned a whole lot of reports. Just from that particular question, that in case you're talking about infrastructure, what do what is basically the backing that you're going to give? In case you're talking about exports, okay, Export Promotion Council, those related reports. In case you're talking about infrastructure, so you have all of these. Okay, you should have your economic survey, you should have your RBI reports, right? All of those things should basically make it to your paper. So ensure that each and every point is basically backed by substantial evidence. In case, thoda sa recollection mein problem hai, review them, revise them. Okay, so this approach, it will not only demonstrate, your breadth, but also it will basically give you enough depth in your answers as well. Okay, and it also basically shows you that you are kind of well versed when it comes to real world happenings in that particular area, right? So for instance, citing specific government schemes, it always feels relevant. What is the government interventions in this, right? So ensure that just about the conclusion, you have a little bit of space wherein you mention what are the sort of, interventions or initiatives that are being undertaken at the moment. That will come across as somebody who knows what's happening on the field, right? Ensure that, you try to put in as many relevant statistics. Some of you are very good with numbers, right? So just try to ensure that, wherever you can, just go ahead and use it. Okay, and significantly it'll bolster your point or the argument. Okay, it makes it a little more credible, right? So do that as well. Okay, especially in a competitive exam, okay, where you're competing against the others, in UPSC, right? Evaluators are looking for candidates who can basically substantiate their points or their claims, their arguments effectively. Okay, so this is how you basically do it. Okay, as much as possible, incorporate those examples, okay, to show that you know what exactly is happening in the field, right? All of those. So what do you do this, right? So you ensure that, whatever you have written, try to go through, your case studies, your success stories, some failures. All of these things can actually provide the evaluator a little bit of understanding of, why are you making the point that you're making, right? So this practice will show that, you're kind of analytical when you sort of like analyze a particular topic, right? So all of these, ensure that, as you get ready for tomorrow, you're just refreshing your memory on all these things that you have already done. Okay, the value addition, the pointers that I've given, the round 1, round 2, and round 3 tests, all these things, just be very very thorough and ensure that, having that you have all of them in your fingertips. Okay, and you somehow weave them seamlessly into your answers, into your points, without much to think, right? So this will basically save you precious time during the exam. Okay, so that is something that I would basically highlight as well. Basically, whatever points that you make, ensure that, just to summarize, just try to keep the point density up. Okay, number of points should be high. At the same time, as many of those points should be supported by solid evidence, whether it is statistics, examples, reports, and whatever have you, depending upon your strength, right? So that is another sort of aspect. See, in the next part, which is basically about static knowledge. Okay, are you writing anything, Harika? What I'm talking about, just try to underline government schemes or anything. Underline, no. Okay, whatever you're doing, just try to maintain that. Okay, no, remove this. What did I say? When it comes to internal security. Okay.
When it comes to static knowledge, yes.
So when it comes to static knowledge, right? See, in internal security, generally you'll find that the questions are generally static. Okay, meaning that they tend to be quite direct. If you look at the PYQs, 80% of the questions that have ever been asked in internal security are generally direct from the syllabus. Okay, so this actually presents you with an excellent opportunity, okay, to stand out a little bit, okay, by just being a little more in depth with your answer. Okay, so in order to do this effectively, all you got to do is go back and revise these topics. First thing you do this is that you revise the topics, okay, especially the key syllabus topics that are already given. There are 8 topics that are there, right? Just revise them really well, okay? Ensure that you have very little thinking when it comes to these particular topics, and you have to provide a little more content compared to the others in this, okay, and little more specifics as well in order to sort of like substantiate your points in these questions in order to stand out, because it's a relatively easier questions, okay? That is another thing that you would want to do. So to do this, okay, I just recommend a couple of things. First thing is that you go back to the last 8 questions from your round 3. Okay, last 8 questions from your round 3. It basically covers your entire syllabus. Plus, I've asked it in such a manner that I'm asking you for the challenges, I'm asking you for the suggestions, I'm also asking you for the current interventions or the initiatives that are being done. Okay, ensure that you have a solid grasp of it so that you can easily sort of recall whatever you need without having much to think. Okay, and basically you have written these as assignments as well in the very first 2 weeks of your week 3. Okay, internal security week, right? The Monday and Tuesday of your week 3 in terms of the daily assignments. Just go through that. Okay, if you can go through that, I think you're pretty much done. Okay, you're pretty much done. Just ensure that recollection is not too difficult. Okay, so that is that. What is the next thing?
Environment wala thing.
Which is environment. Okay. Hmm. So while you have extensive syllabus, right, and you have a lot of points, I think this is probably the stronger. I think most of you are strong in this paper, right? Ensure that along with the body, you also have good introductions and conclusions. Many of you have already messaged me that you did quite well in this particular part in the first 2 papers, right? Ensure that your introductions and conclusions are strong even in this particular paper, right? So depending upon whether you're addressing economy questions, environment questions, internal security questions, have some idea which are the already have your frameworks, right? How exactly are you going to conclude? Just be ready with those, right? So when you come to that, maybe instead of taking you a minute and a half, you can still write the same 5 to 6 lines, okay, with a little less effort, little less thinking, right? So through that, you're also basically able to score in the introductions and conclusions, right? See, think of it like this, right? So when you take a UPSC paper, right? So you have 20 questions, right? And you have 50 pages to write. So it's the way you're going to be sort of like given marks is that, maximum around 70% to 60% is going to be from the body. Okay, the intro conclusion could be anywhere between 30%, 15%, 15%, yeah, 20%, 20%. Okay, so net, if you see, 150 to 175 marks could be the body. So you might have the best body, you might be the topper in the body, okay, in the answer ka body, right? But however, you still have another 70 to 75 to 100 marks that is in your introduction and conclusion. You want to be scoring in those areas as well. And those are relatively easy because you're not putting in anything extremely difficult in those, right? So you just try to minimize the amount of time that you have to spend there by already thinking through which are the frameworks that you're going to use for tomorrow. Okay, so just prepare with regard to that. So just to give you an example, right? So let's say, you take your environment related questions. Okay, just go back and try to bring in as many of these specifics. Okay, in case, some of you are good with the constitution. Okay, go with it. Okay, just go with the fundamental rights. What is it? Article 21, right? So it is right to life, but Supreme Court has also interpreted this to encompass a right to clean and healthy environment. So you basically sort of like link your rights and the environmental protection, bring in your fundamental duties, 51A subclause G, right? That is what it is. Every citizen to protect and improve the natural environment. That basically is our duty, okay, to safeguard ecological heritage. DPSPs, right? You have your Article 48 A, right? So 48A basically mandates the state to protect and improve the forests and the wildlife of the country. Like, all of these things, okay, but it should click when you're writing the exam, right? So these are important principles. This 48A basically lays the groundwork for all government action, policies, legislation, everything towards environmental conservation. Okay, you have a lot of Supreme Court cases, right? You bring in your MC Mehta versus Union of India, right? So that again emphasizes the importance of environmental protection. You can bring in the TN Godavarman, Thirumal Pad versus Union of India, right? So I'm not writing these things, but you have all of these things, right? So ensure that you cite these judgments, and that will just enrich your environment, sorry, your analysis to a great extent. It'll basically help you demonstrate a much depth, a much more deeper sort of understanding of the legal frameworks and whatever current events are happening in this particular field. Okay, so that basically supports your points in those questions that are about environmental initiatives. Integrate these things, right? You can go with SDGs. I think that a lot of you basically go with that. So whatever it is, right, have that robust framework, okay, and ensure that you're able to implement it. Okay, do all the thinking or as much of the thinking outside the exam as possible, right? Okay, and that is that. So these are the major pointers that I have. Okay, so these are basically the major sort of pointers that I'm going to have. um hmm,
To summarize your notes.
wait. Okay, so finally, uh, just to summarize what we are the just to summarize everything that we've talked about, see, just to revise all the validations that are provided. Okay, you can use them in so many different ways. Okay, revisit the 8 questions that I mentioned. Okay, the last 8 questions of your round 3, especially internal security. Go through your Monday and Tuesday, the first day 1 and day 2 of your internal security assignments. Okay, go through your round 1, round 2, and round 3 tests. Okay, and ensure that you have enough introduction, conclusion, points, examples, all of those things ready at your fingertips, right? Overall, I think in terms of content, I think it is solid for you. Okay, I really think the most of the effort is already done. Okay, but some tips on mindset. See, again, keep your expectations in check. So let's say when you're visualizing, okay, you try to be prepared for mentally for these difficult questions. Don't visualize yourself as I'm there and I can write all the questions and it's an easy paper, I'm feeling very comfortable. But instead you visualize that the paper is relatively on the harder end. Okay, so you have easy questions, medium questions, difficult questions. Okay, the difficult questions could be in the beginning, right? So it doesn't matter how it is, but you think that it is going to be a paper that demands a lot of application, demands a lot of thought, demands a lot of content from you, interlinking from you. It requires you to be at the peak of your mental faculties at that particular moment, and imagine that you're doing it. Okay, visualize that you are going to fight and you're going to give a strong fight over the entire 3 hours, entire 50 pages, right? See, you will get a good score. Okay, you're going to get a good score, but again, you have to remember 10 to 12 questions you've got to do above average. Okay, and when I say average, all of you guys are 1%. Yeah, 2% of I think it's 1% of the entire country who has written prelims. Okay, you're already great. Okay, you're competing against them. But in this particular group, you have to ensure that you tackle 10 to 12 questions and be above average in those. Okay, 4 questions, you try to hold your own somehow. You have to create enough in that exam hall and ensure that you're able to maintain, your level along with the average. And 4 questions, ke liye, what do? Okay, pray to Lord Saraswati. Okay, your goddess Saraswati, and then just decide to fight in with whatever content that you have. Try to extract in so many different things that you have. Okay, find what are the ones that are basically going to be relevant for this particular question. Try to see how to sequence those things, and then just craft an answer. Right. So do that. Again, so these are the key focus areas. In terms of completion of the paper, again, remember completion is a non-negotiable, right? You have to write all 50 pages, okay? And the best way to do this is going to be by starting strong. Okay, so speed is going to be your ally. Okay, so the first 15 mark questions you just try to ensure, and I think most of you are basically starting with 15 markers. So the first 15 markers, try to ensure that you're getting it done within 55 minutes. The next set of 15 markers should take approximately 1 hour and 50 minutes, so 10, 50, right? And then reserve 35 minutes for the next five markers, and another 35 minutes for the last five markers. Sorry, five. I just read this, guys. Okay. Basically, 5 10 markers ke liye give 35 minutes, and for the next 5 10 markers, you basically give the rest of the 35 minutes. So essentially, it's going to be a total of 35 minutes and 35 minutes. Okay. So 70 minutes here and 1 hour and 50 minutes for the 15 markers. If you can do this and start strong, then it is going to be a great attempt. Okay. Remember, examples are going to be your secret weapon. Use them generously. Okay. And if you can do all of these things, I think you are going to end up with a very, very, very strong attempt. Okay, a very strong sort of attempt. Okay. Again, a few things. In case you have a set of, let's say, difficult questions, avoid fixating on the previous questions. Okay, while you're writing the next question, keep your thoughts fresh. Concentrate only on, what is the question that you're writing now. Your paper is not going to be decided by the last 10 pages. Okay, your score is not going to be decided by what you had done in the morning session or what you had done in the first paper or the second paper. Third, it doesn't matter. What you need to do is that you concentrate, you give your best for all 200 pages. Okay, of course, you're going to have a good set of 66, 67 pages that are relatively well done. It is going to be approximately average for 67 pages. And then for the other 67 pages, it is going to be a tough fight for you. That is how it is going to be. But you give whatever you have for those entire 200 pages and let the evaluators assess your performance. Okay, you just stay focused and resilient. Okay, and they will give you. It could be a 420, it could be a 430, it could be a 440. Okay, it doesn't matter provided you think of it as a total of 200 pages and not, the last 10 pages or, or the difficult questions deciding your fate. Absolutely not. It's all 200 pages, and then that is going to get your final score. So think of this as a complete 200-page cup fight, right? So that's all I have. For specific pointers, feel free to reach out to me and we can discuss on call as well. So that's all I have. So study well, sleep well, rest well, and give it your best shot. All the very best, guys.